So you voted against repealing that measure, against the advice of the city attorney, and the city has now been sued over the law that it hasn't enforced since 2009. Can you just explain your vote?
Sure. My vote was consistent with another conversation we had in closed session where I did believe that there was more time necessary to be able to explore other options. An outright repeal, although that was the opinion of the city attorney, I didn't feel was the only option that we had on the table. And although we've been sued as a father and somebody that really wants to put the public safety of children first, I think that it is worth us spending the time to look at all options available, if there are any other options available, in the pursuit and the goal of protecting children.
Why? So, given that the city hasn't enforced this law in some 8 years, why keep the law on the books and allow the city to be sued when, repealing the law would have no practical effect on the safety and well-being of any child in San Diego?
Being a new council member, I come with the laws that were already given by previous councils, and I definitely stand by the intent of the law that we want to make sure that San Diego City is a community that is going to stand up for children in the face of sex offenders living in the neighborhood, and we want to make sure that we have all the tools available at our disposal to be able to do just that.
Did you read the Supreme Court case that overturned the law in San Diego County that this lawsuit is based on?
I did not have a chance to read that.
Okay, so it found that the residency restrictions, when they're applied to all registered sex offenders, regardless of individual circumstances, are not effective at protecting children. They increase the incidence of homelessness among registered sex offenders, preventing them from accessing social services, from treatment, from things that could help them get better. And in a very sort of unintentional and sad way, it actually prevents, or it makes it more difficult for law enforcement to keep track of those sex offenders if they're living on the streets, thereby, making it actually less safe for children potentially, because the system cannot keep track of these people if they have nowhere to live. So what is your response to that? I mean, this was vetted with evidence in a court decision, the highest court in the state of California. Why did you not read the case, and what is your response to that information I just gave you?
Sure. Let me clarify. While I did not read the case cover to cover, we actually received and I internalized the summary that you had provided as well, and that was a part of my decision making. But again, I think it was important for us to look at all options beyond just a flat-out blanket repeal that will continue to be able to have the city affirm that we are going to protect our children through local ordinance, where that is a tool available as well.
How is the ordinance protecting children now?
Again, it's certainly an affirmative statement that is meant to be reflective of state law as well, that will help better define the distance required for sex offenders to be able to reside in the city of San Diego from sensitive communities.
So when I spoke to you for your profile earlier this year, I really got the sense, and knowing you as a councilman and all the work that you've done, that you are a firm believer in data, that you believe that policy decisions should be based on sound data, peer-reviewed research. What research or data have you seen to support the assertion that this kind of residency restriction that the city has on the books now is actually effective at preventing child sexual abuse?
Well, I haven't seen data for or against that, but again, as this ordinance was enacted 8 years ago, I would hope that that was also based on some information that it would lead to a positive outcome for public safety for children.
Did you go back to look at, listen to the council discussions on when this law was passed in
For
2008?
8 years ago, I did not.
I'm going to read you a statement. Assumption: most child sexual abusers find their victims by frequenting such places as schoolyards and playgrounds. False: most child sexual abusers offend against children whom they know and with whom they have established a relationship. This is from those bleeding heart liberals at the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. How do you square this with the Child Protection Act placing those restrictions near places like schoolyards, arcades, other facilities that children frequent?
Again, I think you raised some really good points, but I think that we needed more time as the city of San Diego to look at all the options available to us that would be able to maintain the intent of keeping some protections available on our city's books for children.
So you have a seat on the Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee. Are you going to be bringing forward proposals on ways to reform the Child Protection Act in a constitutional manner?
That would be at the discretion of the chair of that committee.
You could bring forward proposals as a member of the committee, though.
That would be at the discretion of the chair to docket that.
Do you desire the chair to docket that?
I'm happy to have those conversations with him, but I can't compel him to be able to docket these conversations.
So I mean, I've spoken with his office, and he said, well, if any other council member wants to send me a memo and request that this issue be docketed at the committee, then I'm willing to discuss that. Are you willing to initiate this conversation with him?
I'll certainly be happy to talk to Chair Kate, who also was in alignment with my vote.
You swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. How is upholding this law, which has been ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of California, in keeping with the oath that you swore when you took office?
I think that my oath to be able to defend all of the people of San Diego under the guise of the constitutions of the United States and California is consistent. I am wanting to make sure that we are approaching this very delicate and sensitive conversation in a responsible way, and we've got a lot of work to do to ensure the safety of public for the children and the public.
I mean, I'm not hearing any commitment to actually continuing that conversation and having it at a policy level, either at the committee or the full council. Do you really want to have this conversation to talk about how the city, in light of this lawsuit, in light of the Supreme Court decision that happened 2 years ago, do you want that conversation to happen?
I am always available and willing to have this conversation, and I think I did make that commitment that I would talk with my colleagues and see about opportunities to docket this at an upcoming committee meeting.
Any timeline? I mean, do you want to do this before the year's over?
Again, that's at the discretion of the chair. I can't presume what he may want to docket or not docket.
Okay, anything else to add?
No, I think we're good.